Hey everybody, sorry about that. Welcome to another episode of Purple Insider. Matthew Collar here, and thank you all for checking in. The show is always presented by FanDuel. In just a moment, Manny Hill is going to drop in, and we will do our typical pick the schedule, but wanted to start out with the update from TCO Performance Center today, which is number one, JJ McCarthy practiced in full. Nobody panic. He did have a thing on his hand because it hit a helmet, but he was out there throwing while we were watching, and he is going to play football against the Chicago Bears. Never fear. Jonathan Grenard, though, maybe not. Grenard did not practice today. And I mean, when you look at the injury, it's a shoulder type of injury that I don't think you want him dealing with for the rest of the entire season. If he practices tomorrow, then maybe there's a chance for a veteran player like that he could maybe get into action. But it feels like missing these first two practices is going to be pretty tough for Jonathan Grenard to play against Chicago, which then would put the onus naturally on Dallas Turner. But we'll have to wait and see how that turns out. And on Chicago's side, there were a few interesting names that did not practice for the second time this week. Jaquan Brisker, who is a great player for them. TJ Edwards, their key linebacker. Those two guys did not practice, but DJ Moore was limited. And when Moore was asked today, this is via Courtney Cronin, when he was asked if he is going to play against the Vikings, he said, duh. So I guess that means the answer is yes, that DJ Moore will be playing against the Vikings. But Brisker and Edwards, those are two of their key players. So some things to watch on the injury report. Before we get to Manny, want to bring you Justin Jefferson and his conversation with us today at TCO Performance Center, because he had a lot of interesting things to say. And the day for Jefferson started with him seeing a video of himself in 2022 making the Justin Jefferson catch against the Buffalo Bills. And then he posted on Instagram that he needs to get back to 2022 Jets, which of course he's had a lot of great football since 2022. But he explained a lot more about why he had said that. So here's a couple of things that Justin Jefferson had to say.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it definitely wasn't, one of my best games. But I would say I want to win. It's not really, I'm not really mad at the situation that I'm in, or I'm not mad at, the players that we have or the plays that's being called. Of course, I'm mad after an interception. That's, you want me to be happy and go chase them down. That's not really something that, that's not really something that I want to happen. And of course, the outcome of the game is us losing. So, and if I was the one that's getting thrown that ball, and it's getting picked off. So a lot of emotion goes towards that. But at the end of the day, I want to win, and I'm an ultra competitor. And a lot of people that don't play this game and don't play sports don't understand the competitive side of it. So I want to win, and emotionally, things get heated sometimes. So and things weren't going our way at that moment. So just want a better outcome, and of course the offense that we have, I feel like we should be playing better than what we are.
So there's Jefferson talking about his game against the Ravens, which stood out as something that we do not see from Justin Jefferson that often. And when he said, you want me to go, chase him down, not enthusiastically, but probably yes, we do usually expect him to go try to make a play on something like that. But he also said, and probably the quote that you'll see the most was he was saying he needs to get back to playing the game and being happy and go into F it mode is kind of what he said. Now, I don't exactly know how to put a finger on what F it mode is, but he was asked about why it isn't the same for him and why it hasn't been the same in terms of his mode, if you will.
Why do you think you haven't been in that mode if you haven't been in it?
Life.
Yeah.
Just different things going on in my life, and just wanting to get back to that kid phase of loving. I still love football, but overly loving football and overly loving just being out there on Sundays and making the big plays and just being a part of this great organization. So just wanting to get back mentally into that mode.
When did you come to that realization?
Say it again?
When did you come to that realization that you want to get back to that?
I mean, honestly, seeing the posts and seeing the seeing the plays, and just having flashbacks of being in that moment. With football, everything flies by so fast, and you kind of miss the moments that you kind of have during that time and during that moment. So just looking back on it, and of course thinking about all the success that we had during that season, the success personally that I had, the play of the year, just all of that stuff going on during that season.
So Justin Jefferson now getting reflective about 2022 and his time with Kirk Cousins. And all I could say about this entire discussion with Jefferson today is that losing for somebody like him is hellacious. And having come off a 14-win season last year, having a 13-win season in his past, Offensive Player of the Year, and to have it not working, I think it makes every player who's a competitor at his level go a little bit bonkers, right? Like that he is looking at himself and saying, I need to go into a different mode. I need to be different. I need to change something. I think that there was some plays to be made out there for Jefferson, and he didn't play with his usual intensity last week, which is not what we expect to see from him. But at the same time, the frustrations do mount when you're a below 500 team, and then somebody who has not had the playoff win, who has not had the past success, now he's waxing poetic about the time that they were winning and an exciting team and having great moments like that, because there just hasn't been many to speak of this year, which is kind of funny because he's still a top 10 wide receiver in the NFL by yardage, but that's not where he expects to be. Well, he expects to be at the top, and he's also not going to come out and say, hey, it's because I couldn't get an accurate pass last week. And if you watch the film, and I know JT O'Sullivan is posted that, he's doing a film breakdown on what happened against the Ravens, but there are a lot of opportunities there for an accurate pass for Jefferson, but he's never going to go there. And I think that is very important for him to never go there when it comes to McCarthy and his development and all those things. And when he was asked about JJ McCarthy, here's what he said.
What have your conversations with JJ McCarthy been like this week?
Say it again.
What have your conversations with JJ been like this week?
The same conversations we've been having before. Continue to be yourself. Continue to have that confidence, and don't really overthink things, even though things are not going the greatest for us, and we're still figuring out some things. Don't let that kind of hinder your play or get in the way of you making the right reads or making the proper plays, because he's a great player. He's a great quarterback. He's a great kid. So at the end of the day, it's just all about going out there and just relying on everybody to do their jobs and just going out there and just doing it. And, of course, people get involved with the media, and, you hear so much different negativity, out in the world. So I'm always going to be that person for JJ to always lean on and talk to about any of that type of stuff. And I'm always going to be that person to motivate him to always continue to be better, regardless if he's my quarterback or not. I like JJ. I love JJ as a person and as a player. So I will continue to, strive for that, and I want the best, outcome for him.
All right, let's bring in Manny Hill as we do every Thursday night. Manny, Justin Jefferson talking very openly today just about how he has been, of course, frustrated by this team not winning. But when he was asked about JJ McCarthy, as everyone heard there, he's saying, look, this is my quarterback, and that he's going to support him, and he's a young player, and he's got his back, and that they're going to have to work through this together by just doing their jobs. And I think that he struck all the right notes of somebody who is a captain and a franchise player today when he was talking about this. But it's very important, Manny, very important that 1 week doesn't turn into 2 weeks, that doesn't turn into 3 weeks, that doesn't turn into the rest of the season of this battle with Justin Jefferson, because I think you kind of get one of these a year from Jefferson. I can actually pinpoint when they happened every single year. And I don't mean meltdowns or him being a crybaby or anything like that. I just mean where it feels like some sort of existential crisis that he hasn't gotten the ball in a couple weeks. I mean, I remember it happened last year after the Chicago game where Addison went off and Hawkinson went off, and it was still a little bit like, Justin needs his targets. And there was a time in 2021 where they were going to play the Chargers, and Mike Zimmer went up to him and said, Justin, give me a hard week of practice. I will make sure you are getting the football. Everybody knows that this is the ticket to having a successful offense, is running it through Justin Jefferson. But if it extends past, because usually every time this happens the following week, like buy Justin Jefferson stock on FanDuel, for example, that's how it usually goes. I feel like this is the right week to be having this because the Chicago Bears defense is not great. Their secondary is banged up. They need one of those games between J.J. McCarthy and Justin Jefferson to get this thing going.
Well, if Justin Jefferson wants to get back to 2022 version of Justin Jefferson, I mean, that's fine. Now, apparently, according to Jaquan Brisker a couple of weeks ago, he made Justin Jefferson cry during that season, which was absolutely ridiculous because that didn't happen, and Justin Jefferson lit up the Bears defense that year. So if he wants to, if JJ wants to get back to that season in that mode, sign me up. We'll take that. If that shows up on Sunday against the Chicago Bears, that's good. But yeah, you're right. I mean, I think that's going to be the thing to really watch for come Sunday is, how involved Justin Jefferson is in the game plan. We know that this team wants to get him the football as often as possible because that's the way to win. That's the best course of action to be able to be, productive on offense for this team. So I would imagine that he's going to have a big game. The opportunity, like you said, is going to be there. I think the question is going to be if he doesn't, this is going to be suddenly uncharted territory because, like you said, this isn't something that lingers. Typically, when there's sort of a little stretch where Jefferson is off or where he's not getting the kind of targets that he usually gets, that situation is usually rectified right away, and you can tell. The first couple of possessions, I think, are going to be really interesting because if he's not getting the targets, if he's not getting the throws, if he's not being productive, then you're starting to wonder, okay, how is J.J. McCarthy going to handle this now? Is he going to start tightening up? Because then now you're going to be wondering, is J.J. McCarthy going to start forcing the ball to Justin Jefferson? And that's where you can get into trouble. That's where something can really extend throughout the entire game. And that happens, and the Vikings could be in real trouble on Sunday.
And I did feel like at times in the game against the Ravens that he was kind of forcing it his way. But then I also thought, he was open. I mean, he was open. And, if they connect, everything is so crazy about how football works. Everything looks different if Jefferson catches that ball in the end zone. I think with the entire way the game played out, number one, but also this feeling about those two, they have connected on some nice plays. I mean, Jefferson catches the touchdown one-handed in the end zone against Detroit. Again, the last time they played Chicago, Jefferson's flying across the field and makes a great sliding catch for a big touchdown from J.J. McCarthy there. I think it just looked so bad at times that it became a crisis for a lot of people. I mean, for those watching at home, for Justin Jefferson, maybe for KOC, although, he's kind of playing it cool about the play calling and all that sort of stuff. But anybody watching, I'm sure, was going, hey, what is going on here? Because we've very rarely ever seen a quarterback struggle to get the football to Justin Jefferson, even with the couple of interceptions and the lack of success between these two. his career quarterback rating when anyone targets him is 106. It's borderline MVP level if you just throw the ball to Justin Jefferson, as Nick Mullins found out in a couple of games. But one thing about the retelling of 2022 that, I would never try to be like, hey, Justin, here's the reason why you caught all those passes. They were losing a lot in that season. They were throwing to come back in games. The Buffalo game where he makes that catch, dude, it's 4th and 17 or whatever, because you have to go for it. You're down in the game. That's one of the reasons that the statistics stacked up. It's probably better in some ways if you're not stacking a million numbers, because that probably means you're playing for a head, you're being a little safer with the football and that kind of stuff. And that's where the game got away from them last week against the Ravens. You get down 2 touchdowns and then you're flailing at everything. And I just don't think that's the best situation for JJ McCarthy to succeed. I do think that failure helps people develop, and that's something we need to not, freak out about. Also, I've got a great statistic for you just to throw it out there before we, talk a little more Jefferson and sort of move forward into this week. Joe Burrow, as a rookie quarterback, went 2-7-1 and averaged 40.4 passes per game. So the idea that KOC should not be throwing the football with JJ McCarthy, which seems to be the new the new big brain thought from everybody, is like, what if you actually never pass with McCarthy? I know I'm misstating that, but like, you all get the point, right? Like, oh yeah, lean into McCarthy and trial by fire and everything else when it looks good. And then when it doesn't look good, then it's no, 8 passes per game. Like, we can't have it all ways, right? Young quarterbacks have to work through it. I looked up Josh Allen's final 5 games of his rookie year, because I think he got hurt in the middle and then he came back. Final 5 games, averaged 32 passes per game. Like, a lot of times with young quarterbacks, you have to push through it, and they might have to here as well. So it doesn't bother me to have the young quarterback throwing passes, but I do think, Manny, circling back to Jefferson, this is nowhere near existential crisis with Jefferson. What it did for me was it created a ping in my brain with the whole thing. I had never thought at any point of like, oh, well, Jefferson could get unhappy and then who knows where that goes, because we've seen that with receivers here before. And that was never there before until this game. That's when it pinged. But I don't think that we are anywhere close to that type of conversation at this moment of, is Jefferson going to demand a trade? And I think if you're doing that sort of stuff, you're just probably desperate for attention at this moment. If there are 8 more weeks like this and he ends up with 72 catches or something, that puts a lot of pressure. They're not getting rid of him, but that does put a lot of pressure on everybody if they can't get this connection figured out.
No question about it. I think right now it's way too early to hit the panic button or to speculate on whether or not Justin Jefferson wants to play with JJ McCarthy. All of that stuff is just ridiculous at this point. But to your point, you have a lot of games left. I think this will be a really good sort of litmus test to kind of see how this connection between McCarthy and Jefferson sort of evolves and grows and develops over the course of the season. You're going to have some opportunities against some really bad defenses over the coming weeks. Green Bay will be a tough one. Seattle could be kind of a tough matchup, but you're going to have an opportunity this Sunday. You're going to have an opportunity against Washington in a few weeks, against Dallas the week after that. Against the Giants, you might have some opportunities. Giants front is pretty good, but their secondary is questionable. And maybe even Detroit, when you get the Lions at home, you might have some opportunities there as well. So there's going to be some chances for this connection to really grow and develop, but you have to see it. If we continue to see performances like Baltimore, where Jefferson is open and he's being overthrown by 10 yards, situations where the timing might be a little bit off, where Jefferson's not able to make a catch in the end zone, whatever the case may be, if we continue to see that, especially against like lesser defenses, and this is also a Ravens defense that has been getting torched this year as well. Now, they had some injuries, but this was a defense that teams have been able to move the ball on. and you struggled to do that against them at home in your own backyard. So if this is something that continues, then, oh yeah, it's definitely something to be concerned about. But I think Jefferson's track record and KOC's sort of development of this offense with Justin Jefferson, I think deserves a little bit more of the benefit of the doubt to that they can kind of right the ship and get things going in the right direction. We know there's going to be some tough spots because you're dealing with a 22-year-old developing quarterback, but what we've been saying all along is just progress, development, growth, improvement. That's what we're going to be looking for with JJ McCarthy over the last half of the season.
I think this game, though, is, and I struggle between making NFL games into this is the biggest game in the history of the United States of America. Because if we didn't do that, I mean, what would football be, right? I mean, my favorite thing, and I'm sure it was for you, Monday Night Football, 1994 or whatever, the big build up and the helmets smash against each other, and Al is in there. And it could be two teams that were 5-7, and they would be like, this game means everything for this player, this team, whatever. They were so good at that. And that has been an inspiration forever for me when we talk about, previewing games and the big storylines and everything else and what the clash means. And I was just recording my Friday podcast with Andrew Kramer today, where we're talking about who has more pressure in this one. Is it the Vikings? Is it the Bears? Like, what would football be if we didn't do that? So I want to take it in a bigger global picture of this game doesn't determine JJ McCarthy's career or what is going to be for Justin Jefferson or how, KOC continues to work with McCarthy. I also think it's fair to call this a litmus test, though. I was just looking at this. The Chicago Bears defense by PFF grade, and if they don't have Brisker, this is even worse, is 25th in coverage and 22nd in pass rush. They are bad, folks. And last week they tried to dial it up for blitzes. Jackson Dart ripped them up every time they tried to blitz. He used his legs. He scrambled. He found plays. And I know Dart's played more football than JJ McCarthy, but when you watch the two, you could kind of I could kind of see it. Like McCarthy's arm is stronger and Dart is more refined, but they have like a little bit of a swashbuckling nature to them, and they're hardworking, balling, scrambling quarterbacks and tough, that kind of thing. Sometimes in Dart's case, a little too tough, but McCarthy too, like run themselves into hits sometimes. And that guy with a much worse team, much worse. Their coach got fired. Their number one receiver is out. Their number one running back is out. It's not even close to as good as what the Vikings are bringing to the table. And that dude was fine. In fact, he was kind of awesome against this terrible defense. So if they can't get a big day out of JJ to JJ, then I think I'm going to be more willing to be like, okay, what the hell is going on here now? Because the Ravens is so much easier to look at that game and see what happened and go, you know what? I know why that played out the way it did. And the Ravens stats aren't that great defensively, but they're a different team. They acquired a safety. Kyle Hamilton's playing up in the box. They got Roquan Smith back. Like there's a reason, they've improved. But I can't say that about the Chicago Bears.
No, and when you look at what the Bears have done, okay, fine. They're in first place. They're tied with the Lions for first place in the North. They're 6-3. But if you look at who they've beaten, I mentioned this on Monday with you and Murph. They haven't beaten anybody, and they've been squeaking by against the bad teams that they've been beating. So this is an opportunity here for the Vikings to really kind of get things right. And really, I think, show everybody that has like the legitimate concerns and people that are wanting to write off JJ McCarthy already. So this is your chance. You're going to have an opportunity here. This is a Bears team that is better than they were last year. They're better coached than they were last year with Ben Johnson instead of Matt Eberflus. But this is a very, very flawed team. You can move the ball on them. They haven't beaten anybody. The Bears are kind of like that group of 5 team in college football that's winning like a weak conference right now, and they haven't really beaten anybody. And you're like, okay, they're really good, or their record is really good, but how good are they really? Who have they beaten? Um, and if you're the Vikings, you're a game below 500, but you're still in the conversation. If you can win this game and then get yourself to 6-6, that's what you've been talking about a lot over the last couple of weeks. Get yourself to 6-6. This has to be one of those 6 wins that you have a couple of weeks from now, because this is as good an opportunity to get a win as you're going to find, just considering the matchup and who you're going up against.
Manny, I want to get to something with you a little later in the show, but I didn't prep you on it, so I'm going to prep you on it right now. Do you have your phone or a pen and paper, if they still have those in America these days, to write this down? Here's what I want you to think about in the back of your mind as we're going forward with this, and you're going to pick the schedule very soon, is a comp for JJ McCarthy if the things that have not worked for him come together. Like, so if the throwing motion improves, the touch on the football improves, the timing of the offense improves, because now we have 4 games to work with. And anytime I can get you to be making comparisons and looking back into history and stuff like that, I want to do that, because somebody asked me in the newsletter today, like, hey, like, are these things fixable or not? And my answer is, well, not tomorrow. Like, I mean, it's certainly not against the Chicago Bears. All of a sudden he comes out and looks like Kurt Warner with the beautiful throwing motion. Like, I think that there's still going to be a lot of times where we are frustrated by overthrows. What you're looking for is progress, and that maybe goes up against Detroit, goes down, and then back up. And, that's how it's going to be. So put that in the back of your noggin. And here's what I want to know from you. Let's talk about super specific stuff. Like, let's pick a couple super, almost ridiculously specific things that we need to see from the Vikings against the Bears for them to get this season back on track, to the point where we'd be saying, oh, hey, that Ravens game was just a bad day at the office. Like, now they're back. I will start with this. It's too obvious to say get rid of the false starts. If they don't, I will just walk out of the stadium. If they commit 4, I'm done. Purple Insider's over. They can't even snap the ball. I'm gonna go start Seahawks Insider. I'll see you guys in the Pacific Northwest. If they can't get snap counts right. But here's what I would like to see from McCarthy that is super specific, and I think they'll work on all week. When he gets a clean pocket, to either stay where you're at, shuffle a little bit to your left or right based on where you're sensing but the pressure, but do not step way up in the pocket, because that, I think, was a cause of numerous things. Balls flying over people's heads. If you take 2 big steps up in the pocket, that could be, a problem, because then you're moving at whatever miles an hour and just making those throws even harder. The other thing would be you get, balls knocked down when you're doing that as well, getting closer to the offensive lineman. That is my super duper specific. You have to improve this. And it doesn't have to be about JJ, but just the offense, the entirety of this thing. Give me something super duper specific.
Well, I think another easy answer would be get off to a good start. But I mean, they had the lead early against the Ravens too, so it's you kind of wonder if that really will make a difference. But I do think getting up on this team, the Chicago Bears, because the Ravens are a little different. The Ravens are, Lamar Jackson doesn't care if he falls down 7-0 or 10-3 or whatever in the first half. He doesn't care. This guy's a 2-time league MVP, all of that stuff.
You can't just blitz him or something. Yeah.
Right. Caleb Williams, on the other hand, still young, still growing, super talented, but he has a little bit of a history of kind of when things are not going well, it tends to linger a little bit sometimes, in the case of Caleb Williams. So to me, it's like, can you jump up on this team like 17-0 in the first half? Like, the opportunities will be there. We've talked about it with this defense. You're going to be able to move the ball on them and specifically throw the ball on this defense. So can you just jump up 17-0 and kind of just dead this thing right away? Because I'm not sure. Now, the Bears were down, I think, by 10 at halftime or something to the Giants last week, but that's a bad Giants team. So you kind of expect expect them to fall apart there. But this is, I feel like this would be a chance if you get off to a really good start, get a double-digit lead early, kind of like what you did against Cincinnati. I think this is a chance for you to really kind of win this thing running away. But again, you have to get off to a good start. You got to, take that first possession, go down, score a touchdown. If the Bears go 3 and out, take that second possession, go down, get a field goal, go up. Now you're up 10-0 with, 5 minutes left in the first quarter, something like that. So I think that's specifically what I would like to see. But that's going to come with, consistency from the passing game, consistency with the quarterback, and showed improvement from, the mess that we saw last week.
By the way, FanDuel question of the day. Did not give that out yet, I don't think. The Vikings are 3-point favorites in this game. Are you confident? Are they winning? That's simple. Are they winning and covering? How about that? For the FanDuel question of the day, again, 3-point favorites. And the most interesting play there is Justin Jefferson at 71.5 yards, because I think that is an over to click. But I'm going to get us very specific with Justin Jefferson. And this is almost just to the point of being almost a little ridiculous. Here's what I want to see from Jefferson and J.J. McCarthy. I want to see routes into the flat. I want to see, and they tried putting him in the backfield last week, and he got drilled by a linebacker or something on one play. I think it might have been the interception where maybe that was supposed to be an option. It got taken out. It is the concern if you line him up at the backfield is that, anybody who watched the Patriots-Rams Super Bowl will remember that the Patriots, part of their strategy was every time that Marshall Faulk went to run a route, they just drilled him in the backfield. And it seemed like the Ravens were ready to do that too. I'm sure they were thinking of the 2001 Super Bowl when they did it. But anyway, I'm going to give you a very specific route. Let's see if it happens. If it happens, people will be like, whoa, what a call. I want to see him run a couple of those routes where it looks like it's going to be a slant. You kind of slam on the brakes, turn toward the sideline, and the ball gets to you like 5 yards down the field. Just a couple of those. Those to me are the easiest completions in the sport. And when a team has a good tight end, they'll do this all the time. If that's one of the centers of their offense, it's just a little in and then break out to the sideline type of route, take the snap, 0-step drop or one, whatever it is, 3-step, let it go. To me, that's the ultimate, get two guys on the same type of page route, which I would like to see. And let me give you one more, and then you can give me one more. So I looked up the get back on track game for Sam Darnold last year. What was it that got him back going after that Jacksonville game where people wanted Ryan Tannehill to be acquired or something, if I recall? And right. And then he threw 18 touchdowns and 2 picks the rest of the way. But anyhow, he targeted 10 different receivers in the next game. I want to see no less than 8 receivers targeted by J.J. McCarthy. That's when we will know that he is on track, because the failure of the Jacksonville game, Darnold and KOC sat down and they went through everything. And the big takeaway for Darnold was, I need to stop trying so freaking hard to push the ball to certain people or to play hero. Because remember, they were in the high red zone. He kept trying to throw it to the end zone. It was like, stop trying to play hero, which I know for Kevin O'Connell is like handing matches and gas to someone and say, don't start a fire, because that's the offense. But it's like, if you don't play hero and you throw to, and I know he's not on the team, but I'm going to say him anyway, Trent Sherfield, get Ben Sims, who is on the team. I guess, Naylor's a key part of this. They don't use any other receivers. Maybe that's a Thielen point or a CJ Ham pass, or last year was Akers caught one. It's like, that means you're going where you're supposed to go with it. Get Ben Sims a freaking catch, and then I'll think that you've done it right.
I like it. For me, another thing I would love to see specifically, well, it's kind of 2 things with the same guy. I want to see sort of an inversion of the use of Jordan Mason in specific situations, meaning short yardage situations. I want to see Jordan Mason get the ball a little bit more. Not every time, obviously, because We know KOC likes to take the deep shot sometimes on 3rd and 1. Once
I was
in a
going to
while,
say, is that KOC at your door not to come to explain to you why you don't give it to Jordan Mason? Because I'm just kidding. Go on. It's just a joke.
But so I want to see more of that. And also, I would like to see less Jordan Mason in obvious passing situations because his pass protection is not good. Like, not good at all. And, I think Jordan Mason is a very good player. He's a very good running back. He has a specific skill set. He runs with intensity. He's very good in short yardage situations. And he's not good in pass protection. I don't want to see him out there in pass protection anymore. Obviously, in 3rd down situations when he's not out there, if you sort of follow this in 3rd down situations when he's not out there, yeah, it's very likely you're going to pass. But this is KOC. He's probably going to pass anyway. So, so yeah, I those are 2 things specifically that I would like to see with Jordan Mason. Short yardage situations, particularly deep in the red zone. You get in the red zone, let's get him the football a little bit more, give him some opportunities there. And also less pass protection from Jordan Mason just because it's not good. And most of the time, play kind of blows up.
All right, before you pick the schedule, I want to make a statement. I'm drinking my Arby's cup here because the wife went to Arby's because I needed something to eat before the show. I will not apologize for that. I will not apologize for the quality sandwiches of Arby's. This is not sponsored, but it sure as hell can be Arby's. And Nike, I don't know why you have Jordan and not me, but anytime you want to drop in and anytime the folks at Diet Dr. Pepper want to step in, please feel free. This show would be very welcome. Let's get into your, let's see. Well, there was an answer to FanDuel question of the day. Aaron said, yeah, the Vikings are winning 23-16. I think that's a reasonable pick. Craig is saying the Vikings will win since no one is going to bet them. The NFL, this is my thing. The NFL, this has become my theory that I have no idea if it's right or not, but I fully believe it, which is when a team has a big win, an emotional win, the next week they will probably let you down. The Buffalo Bills beat Kansas City. We're the Super Bowl champs mid-season, and then they go to Miami and they let you down. The Vikings go to Detroit. They get the huge win. They go to Chicago. They get the huge win. The next week, they let you down. And I think the opposite also tends to work too. Like, I would be betting for next week, the Green Bay Packers, everyone's hammering them. And what usually happens is if a team gets beaten down with a sledgehammer for an entire week, usually everybody locks in. It's all everybody focused. We need to save a season. We need to save a job, et cetera, et cetera. And I think this is not quite save a job, but it is save a season. And it also is get some confidence. I mean, Justin Jefferson being like, yeah, I need to get back to being myself from 3 years ago. You're like, bro, okay, what is going on? I mean, and
you were pretty good last year too, dude.
I know. And look, he said life stuff. I don't ever touch that when it comes to athletes. Like, they're off field stuff. And I also always acknowledge that when something is happening with a player on the field, you can't tell them to just totally tune out everything in life or whatever else. So I fully respect that. But also, you are down bad right now if you're going back and hoping for, a season that was kind of, it was fun and he was great that year, but wow, what? So they need this really bad. And that's why I think that the confidence level should be pretty high, that most times, even in Jefferson's career, but even I would say this for KOC, most of the times that we felt like, boy, man, they really need one, they have gotten it. And coming out of that Jacksonville game, if they had lost to the Titans or something, and they get an opponent that I think is a very beatable 6-3, which takes us to Mr. Hill. Time to pick the rest of the schedule. The Vikings are 4-5. Who knows where we had them being at this point? I doubt it was ever 4-5 at the beginning of the season, and then it might have been even worse a couple weeks ago. So let's begin there with the Vikings at home against the Chicago Bears. Do they win this football game?
Well, to your point about bouncing back, I mean, you could even look at the Lions game a couple of weeks ago about, that they got that drubbing out in LA and then they come back and they go on the road and they beat the Lions. So, I think the Vikings do win this game. Just still not completely sold on the Bears yet. I think they're better than they were a year ago, but they still just haven't beaten anybody. And being a total like college football, this team isn't that good yet.
Yes.
They haven't beaten anybody. They shouldn't be ranked that high. I think the Vikings win. It kind of feels like a 24-17, 26-19 type of game. But I think the Vikings win the game and even things up at 5-5.
Well, you got the same haircut as Booger McFarland, so it works. But I think this is actually really true in this time, because they have played really, it's not just they haven't beat anyone. They played really close games. And this is what I've always talked about when it comes to analyzing the point differential in close games is if you beat good teams in close games, I am giving you a lot of credit for that. The whole one score game thing doesn't matter. It's like all of them. There are all sorts of different ways you can get to a one score. And also, doesn't your opponent matter? If the Vikings play the Packers next week and they win 17-14, I'm not going to be like, yeah, one score, who cares? But if they eke out a 1 point win 10-9 against the Bears, I might not be that impressed. But to your point, I mean, the Bears have just gotten away with it a lot here, and I don't think they're as great of a football team. I do like, let's see, Red Star, who says Purple Insider has the meats. Yep, hey, look, I'll start every show with that if Arby's wants to pony up. The Panthers beating the Packers and then losing to the Saints. Perfect example. I mean,
Yes.
They're all over the NFL this year with examples like that of a team that gets a big emotional win. And I think it's just draining when that happens, that you put so much into a game against Kansas City if you're Buffalo, and then the following week, it's harder to bring the juice. And a lot of times, too, those big wins will come on national TV. Now, that wasn't the case for the Packers or the Vikings beating the Detroit, but it was the case in week 1. It was a big national TV game, Monday Night Football, and then, hey, why don't you turn around and go do it the next week. So anyway, you have the Vikings beating the Bears to get to 5-5, and then now going to Lambeau and the Packers, who are suddenly downtrodden. So the Packers have gone from, let's see, they trade for Micah Parsons. They're a Super Bowl team. They beat the Lions. They have literally won the Super Bowl. Then they lose to the Cleveland Browns. They then should fire their coach. Then they get back on the horse and they get a couple of big wins. Once again, they have won the Super Bowl, and Jordan Love is actually Brett Favre. And then now Tucker Kraft gets hurt, and now they should fire their coach again. And Jordan Love is actually Matt Flynn, and he is not. He's Craig Null or Doug Peterson or Tim Boyle, but he is not Brett Favre.
Scott Tolzien.
Yes,
maybe. I don't know.
Love that.
Just naming off random backup Packer
Maybe Dan
quarterbacks.
Majowski. Maybe the Magic Man at best.
Okay, I'm picking the score. I was trying to think of another backup Packers quarterback.
Yeah. I really throw you off with that. Oh, Seneca Wallace was a Packers backup for a while.
Yeah, he and Tolzien both played in that tie in 2013, I think it was, between the Vikings and Packers at Lambeau.
Oh my God. Yes, they did. And wow, anyone who survived it, congratulations. I know you're supposed to be picking this game, but I have watched back that game and I felt so bad about myself. Like, you guys think I should feel bad about eating Arby's? I love Arby's. But that kind of football game, that's where I felt bad about myself.
Never forget the Vikings and Packers tied at Lambeau twice in the span of like a 5-year period. So.
I was there for one of them, and it's the strangest thing because that game was an amazing game, the 2018 one, but you walk down from the press box, you have to go outside, which is wonderful when they play in January. So you have to go outside and you walk over the fans. So the fans are leaving out of the concourse and you are in this like overhang or something where you're walking over them to go down into the locker room, like the staircase. And so you're walking over and there's just dead silence. Like, usually if the Packers win, it's like, yeah, go Packers, screw you purple losers. And you'll hear people, talking and cheering and everything else. And then if the Vikings win, it'll be a handful of Vikings fans being like, skull, skull, ha, ha, ha. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I
Dead
mean,
silence.
it was like going to a history museum, walking over there, just people walking through, not knowing what to do with themselves. Am I happy, mad, sad, upset?
Hilarious.
Yeah, it was very funny. So you're picking a tie for this game. That's what you're saying?
I mean, why not at this point? I was almost tempted
Ooh,
to pick
Deshaun
the Vikings.
Kaiser. That's a good one.
Deshaun Kaiser. That was the one I was thinking of.
Thank you,
That was the
Guard
one I
Guy.
was thinking of.
Guard Guy is in the comments. Guard Guy's been silent all year to be most silent because Will Fries and Donovan Jackson look great. Guard Guy's got nothing to do. See, he used to come in and say, can this guy play guard? Can Trent Sherfield play guard? But not anymore, Guard Guy. Good to see you, though.
I do think that this is going to be a tough one. I think last week I picked the Vikings to win this game. But that was with the thought that they were going to be playing better than what they have played last week. But I'm going to give the Packers a win here because I do think they are the better football team. They're certainly not without their own flaws. But I think with the Packers being at home, Lambeau's a tough place to play. The weather could be a little tricky. It could be a tough one for the Vikings. I think they'll keep it close because doesn't seem like the Packers offense is running away from anybody right now.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I think the Vikings will keep this close, but I think Green Bay will have the edge being at home and come away with the win.
A lot of really good quarterbacks have struggled against this Green Bay defense, and the Vikings offensive line is built for it, but there is no building for Micah Parsons, and they've played really well defensively. Last Samurai, but why male models? That's right. I will be Derek Zoolander for whoever wants to sponsor the show. Just putting that out there. Matt Hasselbeck, Brett Hundley, great names. Mark Brunell, Kurt Warner. These guys were part of a crazy run. And this is a total aside. And I feel like I'm botching the bit here by having all these talking about Arby's and such. But it was a thing that used to happen where a team would develop quarterbacks and then another team would be like, let's go get that quarterback that good team developed. And the best example of this was San Francisco, whose quarterbacks always ended up in Kansas City. So it would be like Steve Bono, which he maybe wasn't developed there as much, but like an Elvis Gerback. And that used to be a thing that happened all the time in the NFL, where it'd be some backup. And I think this is the death of preseason has probably caused some of this, the impatience. Like if you were a team now that traded for another team's backup that had barely played and been like, this is our quarterback, I think everyone would think you were insane. Like think about like next year, if Max Brosmer is the backup and then some team just said, we're going to give you a 2nd round pick for Max Brosmer and he's going to be our starter. You'd be like, are you out of your mind? But teams used to do that all the time. Like, the Jaguars and Brunell, he didn't start right away in Jacksonville, but he got there eventually. We just don't see that much anymore. And that might have to be a strategy considering where some of these teams are at with their quarterback situations. Anyhow, so you've got the Vikings at 5-6 going out to Seattle to face a very tough defense and a quarterback who's playing some okay football these days.
Yeah, he's pretty good, I think.
He's doing all right. He's doing all right.
Didn't really need him to do a lot on Sunday against the Cardinals because they got off to such a big lead. I think he went like 10 for 12 passing or something like that. He did not have to do much.
That's the model for McCarthy. Why don't you just get like strip sack touchdowns and then have him throw 12 passes? That's what people want.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it wouldn't be too far away from what was going on in college, if we're being honest.
Oh,
well, I mean,
no, it's not untrue.
7 for 8 against Penn State.
That was kind of 2019 Kirk too. I mean, I thought 2019 Kirk overall was phenomenal. I think it was the best year of his career, but there was some of that with him that year.
Early in the year.
Yeah. Like he had, I think a win with 10 passes against the Falcons. Yeah.
There was a Raiders game in there too, I think, where he went like 9 for 12 or something like that.
Yeah, it was the Falcons one was the opener, and I think he threw 10 passes, and then they played the Raiders, and he didn't have to do a whole lot either. He had a great touchdown pass to Thielen. Remember that, where Thielen kind of broke halfway across the field and went the other way, which is, that's a classic Gary Kubiak type of thing, but didn't have to do a whole lot in a lot of the wins that season. And I agree, for winning games, that is ideal. I'm making fun of this whole thing because it's just been beaten to death. It is ideal to have J.J. McCarthy throw 24 passes. It means that you played from ahead. It means that you ran effectively. It means that you got to use play action and everything that's in your book as opposed to just, hey, shotgun over and over and over again. I generally agree. I also think having a game where you fail and throw the ball a lot is not devastating to the guy's career. So anyway, go ahead.
So I think what will be interesting here with Seattle is, Brian Flores got a good look at Sam Darnold for a year.
Yep.
In practice every day last year. I wonder if Brian Flores is going to have some things dialed up to try and throw Sam Darnold off a little bit, put some pressure on him, force him into some mistakes. It's certainly possible. The defensive tackles for the Vikings are playing a lot better in recent weeks, which is a good sign. So this is a tough one, man. This is a tough one. I'll give the Vikings a win here because I want to think that the Vikings, coming out of this tough stretch as you've talked about, are going to be still in the conversation. And I think if they're going to lose to Green Bay, I think it's going to take a win at Seattle to keep themselves afloat in the playoff conversation.
I can buy that. And I think that you have to win one of those two games. If you beat the Bears, you have to either beat the Packers or beat the Seahawks in order to stay in this thing, because then all of a sudden the next run of 3 games, all very winnable. The Commanders on December 7th at home against the Vikings with presumably no Jaden Daniels, although it sounds like he avoided the major injury that we all thought it was, but I don't think he's coming back anytime soon.
Yeah. And even if he does, I mean, how effective is he really going to be? I mean, he's just been banged up all year and just hasn't really been able to find a good rhythm. Consistent rhythm for that team, and their defense is just really bad. So I think this is another opportunity for the Vikings offense to kind of cook a little bit, and hopefully McCarthy by then has kind of found his stride a little bit and is showing some significant improvement. So I'll give the Vikings a win here, and I think that puts them at 7-6.
That would put them at 7-6 indeed, and then they go to Dallas on December 14th, and I think the Dallas team is one of the harder teams in the league to project because they have great wide receivers. They just traded for Quinnen Williams. I don't know how much of a factor that will be, but they are Jekyll and Hyde on offense, where there have been some nights on offense where you're like, well, okay, what's going on with Dallas? Like, why can't they move the ball? And then there are other times, like against Green Bay, where they light them up and they're throwing all night long and Dak looks fantastic. I mean, I don't know where they're going to be as a team at that point, but I do know their offense has the capability to be as good and as exciting as anybody in the NFL. So how do you think the Vikings match up there? I also want to make a point too. This is why we have to keep a global view as we go forward of McCarthy, because at Green Bay and at Seattle, that's 2 of the best defenses in the league on the road. That's a nightmare. But then after that, it's horrible defense, coach has been fired. So like 7-6 going to play at Dallas.
Yeah, I think I've been consistently every week that I've picked the schedule calling this a win, mainly just because of the Cowboys defense just being so bad. But you did mention that their offense, they can move the ball a little bit, when they're right. They're as lethal an offense as there is in the league. Been hard to get that consistency with them over the course of the year. But I'm going to change it up a little bit. I'm going to give the Cowboys the win here, dropping the Vikings to 7-7, mainly just because, Collar, this league is just weird, because somebody might look at that and say, well, how can you have them going to Seattle, a really good team, and winning that game, but then losing to a very mediocre team in Dallas? That's this league. We just saw the Packers lose to the Panthers at home. That's
it makes total sense, actually. Yeah, you're right. And it actually makes total sense to go the opposite way and have them get to now 7-7, where they will go to New York and they'll go to Rockefeller Center and they will celebrate and sing Christmas carols. What a beautiful time in New York at Christmas, but how beautiful will it be? And hey, no Brian Dable, who beat the Vikings in the playoffs once upon a time. I don't even know can they keep Jackson Dart healthy, or is he going to be back by that point? Because after last week, I'm going to call it another concussion. I don't care how many times they cleared him. He's been hit in the noggin too many times this year. So we'll see if he's healthy. I actually love the idea of a Jackson Dart versus JJ McCarthy matchup. Could be a lot of fun. But do the Vikings come home with a Christmas present under their tree?
I am going to say the Vikings do find a way to win this game. I think even if it is Jackson Dart, I think if it's Jackson Dart, it'll be more entertaining because I think it has a chance to be a pretty competitive game. Um, if it's Jameis Winston, I think it has the chance to be also an entertaining game, but in a very different way.
Yes.
Because I think Brian Flores will have a lot of fun with Jameis Winston because, as we know, Jameis Winston is typically a turnover machine. And so either way, though, I think I have the Vikings winning this game and improving to 8-7.
8-7. Now, look, if this is the way that it goes, Manny, and they are going into the last two games with a chance to get to 10-7, still in the hunt, maybe they need some things to break their way or a team to fall apart or whatever, then I will say, good job, Minnesota Vikings. That's not where we expected them to be at the beginning of the year, but considering the things that have happened, having to play a backup for 5 games, having to develop a quarterback on the fly, the bumps, the ups and downs that have gone along with that, knowing that McCarthy was farther behind in terms of his technique and throwing the ball in the offense than we thought he was going to be, and then got the setback. So that counts for all that. Maybe if he was playing against Cincinnati and playing against the Chargers and all that stuff, he would have been farther along by now. But if they can get to 8-7, have a shot at it, then I think that means McCarthy has played well and that there have been not that many days like against the Baltimore Ravens where they seem to come apart, and they should be feeling fairly good about themselves. However, do they win against the Detroit Lions at US Bank Stadium on Christmas Day?
If I pick the Vikings to win here, this will have meant that they swept the season series with the Detroit Lions. I can't see that happening. I think the Lions are certainly not without their own flaws, particularly on the offensive line, and maybe in the secondary a little bit as well. But I think the Lions are still too good to get swept by a divisional opponent. So I'm going to give Detroit the win here at US Bank Stadium.
And the Vikings messing up the Lions last week. That you talk about sending a team's head spinning. This is actually what I'm talking about. Lions have this big bad loss. Everyone's crushing them. Oh, you're not as good as we thought you were going to be. They come back and they just lay it to Washington because they made some changes, including giving Dan Campbell the keys to calling plays. That is very different than having John Morton, who I don't think was very good at it. They didn't make any adjustment whatsoever to the Vikings. And Flores was like, wait a minute, you're just gonna let me keep doing this? I think I will. And then he did. And that really messed them up. So they bounced back in that way. And I think that they'll have a better plan for the Vikings in this game. And I agree with you. On a short week where the Vikings are on the road and then have to come back, I think it's a Friday, right? They play the 21st, the 25th. Which team is Thursday? Okay. Which team is better prepared for this? It's going to be Detroit. They're probably also mad as heck of having to come to Minneapolis on Christmas Day where it could be quite warm. Okay. Packers. So they're 8-8 at that point. Need to beat the Packers in the final week of the season to get above 500. Will it mean a playoff spot? We do not know, but can it happen?
I think that they will win this game and finish the year at 9-8. I think it's, I think salvaging a split with Green Bay, I think makes a lot of sense in this situation. I kind of tend to think that it won't be for a playoff spot. The Vikings will be in the conversation in the weeks leading up to it, week 15, 16, 17. But I feel like some sort of tiebreaker or something like that is probably going to come back to bite them. And this game will probably not mean a whole lot, but I think the Vikings will come out, want to finish the season strong. McCarthy will play well, and the Vikings will finish the season on a high note and finish 9-8. Just barely missing the playoffs.
I'll try my best to make just a tiny bit of an argument. I don't think I totally agree that 9 probably doesn't do it, but let's take a look at the NFC and teams we can already eliminate from having a chance to make the playoffs. I think Dallas, Washington, and the Giants are already done. I would say that the Falcons and Saints are probably dusted too. And the Cardinals. None of those teams, I mean, unless they get insanely hot, are not getting into this discussion. So the Eagles are going to win their division. Let's say the Lions are going to win their division, and the Bucks and either the Seahawks or the Rams. So let's just call that the Rams. That means you're battling with the Seahawks, 49ers for a 7th playoff spot, and the Bears, and I guess the Panthers, but I just can't see that. I mean, that's not that many teams if you go 9-8 to get lucky with some sort of tiebreaker or something like that. Because if I'm already giving the wild card spots to the Packers and to the Seahawks, then it really does leave just the 49ers, the Panthers, and the Bears, I think,
and
right?
you would have a tie. If you were in the Bears both finished 9-8, you'd have the tiebreaker because under my picking of the schedule,
the way
you
you're
will
doing
swept the Bears. Yep.
Right.
You will
So
have swept them. So,
and here's the crazy part about the NFL here is if the Bears lose this game, they're 6-4 and the Vikings are 5-5 by my astute math, that is a 1-game difference with 8 to go, which is not crazy when you have all you need to do is tie them to have a tiebreaker. The Panthers are not going to get to 10 wins, I don't think, unless they get crazy hot, and I don't think they're capable of that. It's that the 49ers are 6-4, but I think, what does their schedule look like? It's pretty easy. The they've got the Cardinals, Panthers, Browns. Oh my gosh.
yeah. And the Bears schedule too. The Bears schedule, by the way, Collar, gets really tough after the Vikings game too. Yeah. They're home against the Steelers. Then they're at Philadelphia on a short week after the Steelers game. Then they're at the Packers, home against the Browns. You could probably pencil that in as a win. But then they're home against the Packers. They're at the Niners, and then they finish up at home against Detroit. So it's gonna be tough for the Bears down the stretch of the season too.
I wouldn't be shocked if the Bears lose this one if they don't get to 9 with that schedule, or maybe get to 9 with that schedule. But this 49ers schedule is insane. I mean, to have the Cardinals, Panthers, Browns, Titans in their next 4 games, they shouldn't lose any of those. So that might make it tough when it comes to getting that last playoff spot. But we'll see. I mean, as you know, you never know how this is going to play out. But that to me, it becomes a win here becomes the Vikings and 3 other teams that are going to be fighting for it. And if you're fighting for it on the last day, then at least you made that happen. And it means McCarthy played pretty well and you've got yourself a chance to go forward with McCarthy. And that's where, Manny, I keep asking people about setting the bar of like, where do we need to set the bar with McCarthy? And my favorite way of doing it is the least analytical way, is that if none of us are really arguing over it, then it means really good things happened. If we all just kind of know, if you could walk into a downtown Minneapolis bar and ask, I don't know, 100 Vikings fans on a Friday night after a game or something, hey, is JJ the guy? And 95 say yes, and 5 are too drunk to answer your question, then you've probably done it. Because I don't think that this is the hard thing about when everybody's going crazy, yelling at each other on the internet after every game and all that. Sometimes when it comes to something like this, it's like, I think it shouldn't be that hard. Like, you shouldn't have to be working this hard like people were last week of KOC needs to not run here and not run this, and the system's too hard, and this and this and this and this. It's like, that sounds like we're working really hard to make JJ McCarthy not at all culpable for what happened, which in that game, to me, he very much was. Just like Atlanta, saying that doesn't mean that he sucks. Like, I don't know how to make that clear. I need something to flash on the screen. This particular criticism does not mean JJ's a bust. Like, it needs to, I think I might have to create that for the live stream. But if we get to the end and they're 9-8 and they beat the Packers on the last day of the season, I think all, 95 out of 100 in that bar are going to be saying, oh yeah, yep, he's the guy. And that's who we want to go forward with and on to next year. Because the difference with some of the other quarterbacks who have had these, like, oh, he played really well down the stretch kind of thing is, well, one, the supporting cast, the coaching staff, the continuity, but also the physical skills. That's the one thing about Bryce where he played well last year, Bryce Young, but man, the guy's still 5'10". It's like you can have a run of games that wasn't bad, but you can't take that away. With McCarthy, it's certainly it's too much physical skills at times. It's like, JJ, you are strong with the arm. You don't have to, that kind of thing. So anyway, that's how I view this. And in your scenario, it's as good as you could possibly hope for at this point, I think.
Yeah, and I think for me, picking all of these games the way I did is kind of anticipating that they're relatively healthy for the rest of the way too. I mean, I think they've got to try to avoid the catastrophic injuries. They've been dealing with some injuries here and there the first half of the year. I think if they can really now, obviously Grenard situation with the shoulder is going to be something to monitor over the next few weeks. But, I think you got to keep Andrew Van Ginkel on the field. You got to keep Blake Cashman on the field. The 2 defensive tackles that you signed, you got to keep them healthy and fresh because that's when they're going to be at their best. Your corners really need to stay healthy because if either one of those 2 guys get hurt, I mean, we've already seen both of them have kind of their ups and downs. And if one of them gets hurt, oh boy, you are in some deep bleep. And obviously McCarthy staying healthy too, I think is the biggest, most critical thing of all of this as well, because he just has to play. He has to have the reps, the in-game reps, the situational stuff. He's got to go through all of that. That's the only way he's going to truly develop and grow into what they hope he can be down the line. So staying healthy is going to be a big part of it. And if they can do that, then I think they can get things really turned around and finish the season strong.
My prediction on this one is that the Vikings will win and they will not cover. So it's going to be by less than 3. That's where the line is on FanDuel right now. Will Reichard's 61-yard field goal from the logo to win the game against Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears. And boy, do they need it. And you know who else I feel like needs it is all of you. I think all of you really need them to win this game as well. Because I felt like just the how stable people were last week really teetered toward falling off the cliff and blowing up in like a Michael Bay movie level fashion. It was like, okay, I think all of you just need a win against the Chicago Bears and we could start, moving forward with the rest. And the biggest thing for me is if you are getting a win against the Bears and going to Lambeau, then it's got juice. It's got energy. It's exciting. Even if you don't win the game in Lambeau, it would still be like, hey, this matters. So you're back at 500. Like, here you go. You lose this one. Oh, man, that trip down there, if you're driving it, not going to be a good time. It's also pitch black out by 5:30 these days. It's awful. Anyway, all right, Manny. Well, we'll see what happens. Through thick or thin, Manny and I will be here. And if you're rewatching, FanDuel question of the day, are they going to win and why? Sometimes it's not complicated. Thanks again, Manny. Thanks everybody for watching. Tomorrow night, 2 interviews that I had done today will be playing tomorrow. If there's any breaking news, of course, I'll go live. If not, probably not, then Andrew Kramer and the Hardcore Breakdown. And then Mike Renner from CBS Sports, who, for my money, is the best person doing media at breaking down film. So he will be on talking about J.J. McCarthy's film and where that needs to go and a lot of details there. That's what's going to happen tomorrow night. So thanks, everybody, for watching/listening. And the next time I see you live, I guess will be after the game. And who knows where we're at emotionally after that. So thanks, everybody. And we'll catch you all next time.
Football.
Okay, there